Um, I'm grateful to be with you today for this Recovery Dharma day-long retreat. It's a joy to be here with this community, with this Sangha. And as I said, thank you, Marion. Thank you, Cheryl, for organising today. Maybe I just digress from my usual rhetoric and just offer a Sri Lankan blessing to everyone. I won't go into too much detail about the origin, but it simply goes, how wonderful you are in your being. I delight that you are here. I take joy in your good fortune, and may your happiness continue and increase. So our theme today is impermanence and resilience, embracing change and recovery. As Marianne touched on, I've been sober for, I think it's 29 years this month. And early on in my recovery, I became associated with Wat Tam Trabok Buddhist monastery in central Thailand. If you look up the vomiting monastery on the internet, you'll find Wat Tam Trabok because they have this very famous herbal medicine that makes you sick. And it's a sort of a last ditch, last hope detox for a lot of people. I ended up ordaining there twice, taking temporary ordination there twice, just for a month each time, and both wonderful experiences. And yes, in 2009, after attending the very first Buddhist Recovery Conference in Los Angeles, I set up the Fifth Precept Sangha in the UK, and that recently has evolved into this new project, this Raft to Freedom framework, this Raft to Freedom acronym and framework that I'm developing with Dr. Catherine Jacob. And if you want to look up the Raft to Freedom, it is simply RAFT2 freedom.org if you want more details. Looks like there's clouds that come over the sunlight here. I've always, as Marion also touched on, I've been a prison chaplain in male and female prisons, and I did set up Hungry Ghost retreats, and I still teach all over the world. If people invite me, I don't push myself. If someone invites me, I'll come along and teach. I was also on the board of directors of the Buddhist Recovery Network, and stood down this year to. I wasn't going to teach this year. I was taking a year off, and but I've stood down from Buddhist Recovery Network. So I wanted to give you some of my personal experience and evidence of impermanence with both bright and dark consequences, or should we say with both dark and bright consequences. So let me give you an example. Back in 2014, I underwent an unexpected and unwanted divorce, which led to me moving to Ireland, where I eventually bought an old pub restaurant, which of course ex-alcoholics would do, but I was going to turn it into a meditation centre. Unfortunately, I made the wrong choice of building contractor, and without going into too many details, he effectively demolished the whole building. And so, but from that, it wasn't just the property demolished, it's 30 years of my life just gone. 30 years of shift work, 12-hour shifts, days and nights, 7 days a week, and all I'm left with is a pile of rubble. My new relationship at that time was demolished by that situation. My life savings were demolished. Any future source of income was demolished. My pension was seriously depleted. And at the end of it, all I got left is a pile of rubble. This indeed was a very painful, difficult, disappointing, and depressing time. The house where I lived used to have a fully roofed 17 rooms. But all that's left now are piles of rubble and the 3 rooms where I still live that have a bit of a roof over them, not an entire roof. Effectively, my kitchen come office, my bedroom come sitting room, and a sort of storage room, a damp storage room come laundry. I literally live on a demolition site, and many people who pass don't even realise that the property is occupied. So, what is the appropriate response to such a situation? Now, I can't answer for anyone else. I took the whole experience very personally, and I was stuck with the thought things should be different. And that plagued me for months and months and months, and perhaps even a year or more. But fortunately, eventually, my Buddhist practice kicked in, and I shifted from this should be different to this could be different. I shifted from things should be different to things could be different, but they're not. And my peace of mind was restored when I made the mental transition from why me to why not me. So now, rather than running the business of a retreat centre in Tipperary and Ireland, as I once wanted and expected, I'm now free to do something else with my life. And for the last 5 years, I've been travelling the world on a budget. I've written a little bit about this on the Hungry Ghost Retreats website under the heading of Travelling Simply to Simply Travel. So if you want to read about my budget travel over the last 5 years, you just go to the Hungry Ghost Retreats website and look at the Travelling Simply to Simply Travel tab. Okay, so that sets the scene. But why I'm talking to you today from La Paz in Bolivia. I've actually just come from the Galapagos Islands. But today I'm in La Paz. I'm in an Airbnb, but the Wi-Fi isn't very good, so I'm now in the host's house using their little office to talk to you today. So, as I say, I hope that sets the scene. Also, I hope it might inspire someone to have a look at Google Maps and think to themselves, I'm going to have an adventure before dementia. As Marion said, my talk today is called The Unshakeable Raft on a Changing River, Embracing Impermanence and Resilience in Recovery. I want to explore the Buddhist concept of impermanence as the river that we all cross, and resilience as the raft to navigate it. I will introduce the Raft to Freedom acronym and framework, which combines Gotama, the Buddha's parable of the raft, with the 37 factors of awakening, which are described as his core curriculum. I will discuss the 2 arrows parable, distinguishing between the unavoidable pain of the first arrow and the self-inflicted suffering of the second arrow. The Raft acronym itself stands for recognize, abandon, freedom, and train. And I will show how each is linked to Buddhist principles and to Recovery Dharma practices. I would emphasise that suffering, like everything else, is impermanent, and this offers hope for healing and freedom. I will conclude the talk by highlighting the importance of continuous practice and of community in building and strengthening one's personal raft of resilience. Heraclitus, which is difficult to say, Heraclitus, the ancient Greek philosopher, once said, "You can't step into the same river twice because it's always changing, and so are you." He really believed that everything is constantly in motion. Think about a river. It might look the same, but the water is always moving, making it a new river every second. And just like the river, we're always changing too, thanks to everything we learn and everything we experience over time. Impermanence is the river that we all cross. Resilience is the method we employ to move from the dangerous shore to reach the far shore without being swept away. For many of us on this journey, so much of our energy goes into building something stable, stable sobriety, stable peace, a stable sense of self. And yet the deepest wisdom we explore points to a universe that is inconstant, a universe that is in radical change all the time. So how do we hold that? How do we reconcile this deep human longing for stability with the reality of impermanence, especially when our well-being feels so tied and reliant on that stability? This is the core tension we'll explore today. We'll use two specific lenses to examine this tension. The first lens is Gotama's parable of the raft. He's reported to have said, suppose a man were travelling along a path, he would see a great expanse of water, with the near shore dubious and risky, the further shore secure and free from risk, but with neither a ferry boat nor a bridge going from this shore to the other. The thought would occur to him, here is this great expanse of water, with the near shore dubious and risky, the further shore secure and free from risk, but neither a ferry boat nor a bridge going from this shore to the other. What if I were to gather grass, twigs, branches, and leaves, and having bound them together to make a raft, were to cross over to safety on the other shore in dependence of that raft, making an effort with my hands and feet? It is through this lens that we will look at impermanence as a constantly flowing, ever-changing river that our raft of resilience must navigate and cross. The second lens is Gotama's 37 factors of awakening. These 37 qualities that can be these 37 qualities can be considered Gotama's core curriculum. In his last talk to the monks who were gathered round him before his death, Gotama emphasised the teachings that he had realised through direct knowledge. He urged his followers to learn, to cultivate and to develop these specific 37 practices to ensure the spiritual path would endure for the welfare and happiness of all beings. The 7 sets of qualities that make up the 37 factors are the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of spiritual power, the 5 spiritual faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of awakening, and the Noble Eightfold Path. I hope in today's talk to combine both the metaphor of the raft and the 37 factors of awakening as tools, not to solve this paradox of finding stability in an unstable world by eliminating one side, but to navigate it skillfully, to explore how to build a resilient vessel on an ever-changing river. From both a Buddhist and a recovery perspective, the raft metaphor is simple, yet profound. Impermanence is the river we cross. Resilience is the raft we build. The journey itself is our path to freedom. To understand how we build this raft, we first need to get very clear about the nature of our suffering. Gotama offered another powerful metaphor that helps us to do this, often called the parable of the 2 arrows. The teaching goes like this. When we're walking through the forest, we might get struck by an arrow. This is painful. It is the unavoidable part of life. It is an unavoidable part of life. This first arrow represents the inherent unavoidable difficulties of being human, a painful emotion, a difficult memory, a physical illness, or for those of us in recovery, the sudden intense arising of a craving or an urge. Or in my case, choosing the wrong building contractor who demolishes your life. This first arrow is impermanence in action. It happens. It could be different, but it's not. But what do we often do when we're struck by that first arrow? We immediately shoot ourselves with the second one. This second arrow is the suffering we add to the original pain. It is the arrow of judgment. I can't believe I'm feeling this urge again. I'm a failure. This shouldn't be happening. It is the arrow of fear. This craving is going to last forever. I can't handle it. It's the arrow of shame, the arrow of aversion, the arrow of storytelling. The first arrow is painful. The second arrow is suffering. I like to present Gotama's first life-changing realization. I call it life-changing realization because I really don't get on with the phrase noble truth. So apologies if noble truth is your preferred way of referring to this. But Gotama's first life-changing realization, I like to present it as life's painful, difficult, disappointing. You don't get what you want, and then you die. Gotama isn't being pessimistic, far from it. He's being realistic and managing our expectations. Any resistance to this reality, to this realization, is the second arrow. There's at least one talk attributed to Gotama where he almost berates himself for placing his happiness in things that don't last or truly satisfy. And this is part of what motivated him to leave home in search of what he called sublime peace. Recovery, at its core, is a process of learning how to feel the sting of the first arrow, the pain, the difficulties and the disappointments of life, without firing the second arrow. Resilience is the skill of tending to the first wound with wisdom and compassion, rather than making it worse with self-inflicted harm. So now might be a good point just to introduce you to the Raft to Freedom framework, which is a project that combines the metaphor of Gotama's raft with the 37, and we've added a few more factors in there as well, but the 37 virtues of awakening, to teach us step by step how to cross that river of impermanence, how to navigate it safely. It's a guide to building a vessel of resilience so strong that when the inevitable first arrows of life strike, we have the stability and the skill not to stab ourselves with the second. The Raft of Freedom framework encompasses all of the insights, values, and practices of the Recovery Dharma program, while offering alternative perspectives and additional opportunities to explore what it truly means to be human. The two programs are mutually complementary. And as I say, if you wanted to get a taste for how the Raft to Freedom is unfolding, we're gradually releasing chapter by chapter online. You just have to go to raft2freedom.org. While we can readily relate, I'm sure, to the kinds of suffering described thus far, suffering in Gotama's first realization also includes the pain of imperfection, impermanence, emptiness, unsubstantiality, and conflict. These are fundamental categories of suffering which plague humanity. Within the broader Buddhist context, suffering articulates the insecurity of living in a transient world. And let's look more closely at the river of life that we're all navigating. Gotama's first major insight was into its fundamental nature, which he called anicca, or impermanence. The helpful way to think about this is that impermanence isn't a bug in the system of life. It's a core feature. It's the core feature. It is the operating system of reality. Everything that comes together falls apart. Everything that is born dies. This applies to everything and everyone without exception. Our bodies, our relationships, our circumstances and experiences. And most importantly, for our practice here today, our inner states are impermanent. Just an aside, my favourite contemplation on a daily basis, often several times a day, is the contemplating my own death, my own mortality. It makes my life much, much happier, and it makes my life worth living. So consider this. Feelings are impermanent. Difficult emotions like shame or anger are temporary weather patterns, passing through the vast sky of our awareness. They're not who we are. Thoughts are impermanent. They arise, they linger, and they dissolve. Yes, my thoughts are real, but they're not necessarily true. Craving is impermanent. An urge can feel like a solid, unbearable reality. But the truth is, it's like a wave in the ocean. Craving gathers energy, it rises, it crests, and if we don't feed it with our attention and our resistance, it will naturally pass away. The struggle against what is, this resistance to the river's flow, is the very definition of the second arrow. the resistance to Buddha's first realization that life is difficult, disappointing, painful, and then you die. Any resistance to that is also a second arrow. It is the clinging and aversion that turns the simple neutral fact of change into profound suffering of addiction. But here is the most important part. This is the part that turns this entire teaching from something that might sound bleak into the best news we could ever receive. If everything is impermanent, that means that our suffering is also impermanent. Our pain is impermanent. Our shame is impermanent. Our darkest moods are impermanent. And yes, even our most powerful cravings are impermanent. Nothing is a life sentence. No state is fixed because impermanence, because of impermanence, change is always possible. Healing is always possible. Freedom is always possible in the very next moment. And here we can weave in a more subtle, perhaps even provocative insight. This principle of impermanence doesn't just apply to our suffering, it also applies to the very identity we might build in recovery. Many of us hold tightly to the identity of I'm an addict or I'm in recovery. And in the beginning, this can feel protective, essential. But the deepest freedom comes from realizing that even that identity is impermanent. And true liberation isn't found in any fixed identity, even a helpful one. It's found in the skillfulness to navigate the impermanence of all identities. The ultimate goal is not just to be recovered, but to be awakened, to be fluid, to be changing, to have a changing nature of self altogether. The ex-monk Jeff Oliver says in his free book, Forgiveness for Everyone, if you look up Forgiveness for Everyone PDF, you can find it online. He says in Forgiveness for Everyone, that's who I was yesterday. It's not who I am today, and it's not who I will be tomorrow. So how do we translate this hope? How do we translate this hopeful understanding of impermanence into skillful action? Both Recovery Dharma and the Raft of Freedom framework provide blueprints that are modern, accessible framing of Gotama's Four Noble Truths, or as I like to say, his four life-changing realizations. Within the Raft of Freedom framework, we present these as four life-changing, as I say, four life-changing realizations. The Raft framework is a structured guide for moving from the dangerous shore of suffering to the safe shore of freedom. It's really important to emphasize here that this isn't a new program to lay on top of your existing one. Let's look at Raft through the lens of Recovery Dharma practices you're already doing. Here's how this tool might fit right into what you're already committed to. The acronym RAFT guides us to recognize, to abandon, to experience freedom, and to train. Let's start with the R, recognize. This is the first realization, to recognize that life is difficult and constantly changing. In Recovery Dharma, we do this through the core practice of inquiry and investigation. We don't just passively notice things change, we actively investigate the Four Noble Truths as they show up in our lives. We recognize the suffering tied to grasping for substances or for behaviors and see these truths playing out in our own experience. This is a personal guided recognition using the tools of the program. But how do we meet this often painful reality? This is where we need the first binding rope of our raft, compassion or karuna. Instead of meeting our pain with harshness, we meet it with warmth. We can say to ourselves, this is a moment of suffering. This is hard. This is compassionate acknowledgement. This compassionate acknowledgement is the foundation of resilience. Once we've recognized the natural pain, the impersonal pain with compassion, we can move on to the A in our raft, abandon. This is Gotama's second realization, to abandon the harmful cravings and reactivity that amplify our suffering. We can link abandon directly to the renunciation commitment in Recovery Dharma, the commitment to abstinence and wise boundaries. Abandoning means actively letting go of the skillful mental and physical habits that lead back to suffering. It's a concrete step on our recovery journey. There's one subtle difference here, that is in that the raft framework makes a distinction between abstinence as being a mental state of denying ourselves something we think we want or need, and abandoning as being the mental state of freely letting go of the things we no longer want or need. In a sense, abstinence keeps us a prisoner of the past, whereas abandoning sets us free to create a new future. This might seem just like clever semantics, but they are very powerful semantics. The act of letting go requires a second crucial binding rope, kindness or metta. We don't abandon our harmful patterns through force, but by softening our resistance with kindness. When a craving arises, we can meet it with a gentle curiosity, perhaps saying, "I see you, Mara." In Buddhist stories, Mara represents the voice of temptation, the voice of distraction. By saying, "I see you," oops, are we still here while I try and balance my camera? Okay, let's hope that will stay. So in Buddhist mythology, Mara represents the voice of temptation, the voice of addiction. Mara is the voice of distraction. By saying, "I see you," we're not fighting, we're acknowledging the urge is present, any urge's presence, seeing it for what it is, a temporary, impermanent weather pattern passing through. There's a useful acronym using the word Mara as a mindfulness tool. M is for mindful, A is for awareness, R is for response, and A is for appropriately. So depending upon the circumstances, we might say, "I see you, Mara. I hear you, Mara. I smell you, Mara. I taste you, Mara. I feel you, Mara. I know you, Mara." Mindful awareness responds appropriately. We don't have to love Mara or befriend Mara, but we can bring a kind attitude to his or her presence. Once Mara is recognized and acknowledged, he or she loses their power over us. Following our efforts to abandon harmful and unhelpful habits naturally leads us to the F for freedom. This is Gotama's third realization, that freedom from craving can be directly experienced. This isn't a far-off state. It's the freedom we find by engaging with the path of Recovery Dharma itself, the freedom that comes from taking refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha. It's the moment a craving passes, the calm between waves, a mindful breath in a stressful day. These glimpses show us that resilience is real. Freedom from craving, aversion, confusion can be experienced. It can be personally verified. And part of the training is one, to see when craving, aversion, and confusion are present. But more importantly, we have to know when they're present in order to know when they're not present. And it's to recognize those moments which we tend to ignore, when the craving's not there, the aversion's not there, and we don't feel confused. Those moments to stop, pause, linger, savor. They might be brief, transient, but if we notice them, we can start to build on them. The heart practice that strengthens this is appreciative joy or mudita. When we experience a moment of relief, we can pause and we can savor it. We celebrate these small victories, building our confidence that the storms will pass. At the start of today's talk, I offered some phrases from a Sri Lankan Buddhist blessing, which are very powerful. And one of my teachers, Christina Feldman, she suggests that we turn that blessing back on ourselves. So we might do that right now, just very simply. I know that everyone's microphone is muted, so that's fine. But you might just place your hand on your heart, and you might just recite after me. How wonderful I am in my being. I delight that I am here. I take joy in my good fortune. May my happiness continue and increase. And just let that rest for a moment of self-appreciation. But finally, we come to the T in, after T to train. This is Gotama's fourth realization. There is a path of practice that sustains our freedom. This is where we explicitly highlight recovery Dharma practices that are often done every day. Our daily meditation is training, our engagement with the Sangha is training, showing up for meetings is training, showing up on this retreat is training, connecting with wise friends and offering service. All of this is training. These aren't just general ethics, they're the very planks and ropes of the raft, right here in the Recovery Dharma program. The heart quality we cultivate through this training is equanimity or rupekkha. This is the ultimate resilience. It's the balanced, spacious mind that can meet both the pleasant and unpleasant waves of life without losing its center, knowing that this too shall pass. So now let's move from talking about the raft to actually sitting in it. Let's take a few moments to practice together to drop our anchor in the present moment and experience these truths for ourselves. And before I start this meditation, I'm going to mute myself and turn my camera off because I need to blow my nose. 1 second. Okay, that's better. So, find the posture that feels both relaxed and alert, a posture that embodies dignity and ease. You can gently close your eyes, and if it feels comfortable for you, we begin our meditation by just grounding our body and breath, our primary anchor in this ever-changing sea of experience. We can take a few slow, deep breaths, feeling the body breathe in and feeling the body breathe out. Now we can allow our breath to return to its natural rhythm and simply rest our attention there. Notice the breath as a wave, rising on the inhalation, cresting at the top, and falling away on the exhalation. Just like a river, it's never the same breath twice. Each breath is a direct, tangible experience of impermanence in the body. It arises, it stays for a moment, and it passes away. For a few moments, we can just rest here, riding the gentle waves of our own breath. This is an act of compassion, an act of kindness, an act of self-appreciation. Giving ourselves a few moments, a few breaths, just to be. Now, gently broaden your awareness, just as you are watching your breath. See if you can notice the other currents in the river of your experience right now. You might notice physical sensations, warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure. You might notice as they arise and as they pass away. You might notice sounds coming and going. And you might notice thoughts drifting through the mind like clouds in the sky. You don't need to do anything with these experiences. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to figure them out. For this meditation, the only task is to notice them as changing. Notice them as impermanence. A sensation changing. A sound changing. A thought changing. As you sit here, I invite you to bring to mind the image of yourself sitting steadily on a raft. This raft is your own awareness. Spacious, stable, and resilient. From this raft, you can watch the river of your experience flow by without needing to grab onto anything, without needing to push anything away. If a difficult feeling or a challenging thought arises, a wave of sadness, a current of anxiety, see if you can meet it with compassion. You might silently offer a kind word to yourself. It's okay. I can be with this. This is like tying another rope of kindness around your raft, making it stronger. The river is always moving, but your raft of awareness is steady. Rest in this resilience, this capacity to be present with life as it is. Things could be different, but they're not. Now, gently bring your attention back to the feeling of your body sitting here, back to the simple sensation of your breath. When you're ready, you can slowly and gently open your eyes. As we come to the close of our time together, let's revisit our central theme. Impermanence is the nature of the river of life. True resilience is not about stopping the river, but about building a raft that allows us to navigate its currents with wisdom and with grace. The materials we gather for our raft are not limited by Gotama's Dharma. Our raft can be supported by healthy living changes, by therapy if appropriate, or by anything that looks after our hearts, minds, and bodies. Gotama's own journey to liberation was a methodical process of gathering materials for his raft. He tested advanced meditation practice and found them useful but incomplete. He tested extreme self-punishment and discarded it as harmful. He learned from every step. His discovery of the middle way provides the blueprint for Recovery Dharma and for the Raft to Freedom framework. It is a path of radical balance, wisdom, and compassion. By recognizing the landscape of our suffering with the same clear-eyed courage he demonstrated, we take the first essential step. We stop running from the pains, difficulties, and disappointments of life, and instead turn to face them, ready to learn new skills needed to gently integrate them and navigate our way to the safe shore. We bind and strengthen our resilience on the journey to well-being with self-compassion, self-love, self-appreciation, and self-balance. It took Gotama 6 years to gather the materials for his metaphorical raft and his journey to the far shore. It was a marathon, not a sprint. This was followed by 45 years of practice until his final dying breath. Some of the skills that he tried were not beneficial, not suitable, so he discarded them. He jettisoned them and left them behind. The Raft to Freedom framework seen through the lens of Recovery Dharma path, gives us a map. R, to recognise life's impermanence through our practice of inquiry. A, to abandon harmful patterns through our commitment to renunciation. F, we taste freedom for our refuge in Dharma and Sangha. And T, we train our hearts and minds through our daily meditation and community engagement. And it's important to remember the ultimate purpose of this vessel. Gotama, in a teaching aptly called the simile of the raft, reminded his followers that the raft is for crossing over, not for carrying on your back. This applies to our recovery itself. Even the safe shore is impermanent. True freedom isn't a static place we reach, but a dynamic, skillful way of being right in the middle of constant change. The journey itself is the liberation. The 37 virtues of awakening are the detailed, practical application of Gotama's fourth realization, the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the final and most comprehensive set of practices within the 37 virtues. It's the very definition of the Fourth Noble Truth. Therefore, the 37 virtues are not a separate list that should include the Four Noble Truths. They are the how-to guide for fulfilling the final realization. The river of impermanence. Sorry about my camera. End up holding it in my hand. The river of impermanence will keep flowing, that's certain. But the good news is we do not have to face it empty-handed. We have the tools, we have the practices, and most importantly, we have each other, we have Sangha. Each compassionate breath, each moment of letting go, each kind word you offer to yourself or to another, these are all the planks and ropes we're adding to the raft that carries us towards freedom. All of it makes you more resilient in the face of change. May we all have the wisdom to see the changing tides, the compassion to hold ourselves through the storms, and the courage to keep building our rafts, one piece at a time. As I say, if you'd like a deeper dive into the raft acronym and framework, have a look at the raft #2 freedom.org website, and you might get some inspiring ideas there. Part of my own personal raft, having suffered the demolition of a life I expected to happen, is one of my planks is the Dharma itself. One of my planks is traveling and seeing the world with non-judgmental eyes, to experience new sights, new sounds, new smells, new tastes, new tactile experiences. But equally, and I would mention that not all of those sensations are pleasant. And if you ever used a public toilet in Tibet, you'd know what I'm talking about. But also to be at home, to be at rest with the ordinary and the mundane, with the old sights, the old sounds, the old smells, the old tastes, the old experiences. One of the planks of my raft is to study the Dharma, and to, where possible, like today, to offer perhaps a peculiar and narrow view of how I experience the Dharma. But for me, that's the way it should be. It should be experienced. It should be taught. So thank you, Marianne. Thank you, everyone, for your presence, and thank you, everyone, for your practice today.
And thank you so much, Vince. I was wondering, would you be open for any questions and comments? I'm going to also put your link in the chat and the acronym to raft in the chat box. So hopefully everybody can see that. Um, would you be open to some questions and answers? Or it's okay if you're not, we can move on.
No, I'm fine. My afternoon, I haven't. My afternoon is planned. There are 10 cable car lines in La Paz. It's rather like the metro or subway, but rather than being underground, these cable car lines are all above ground. It's like a metro in the sky. So my intention this afternoon is to visit. Let me come out. You see, it's getting quite bright here. My intention this afternoon is to visit every single one of those lines and to explore the pairs that way. But I do have time, yes,
Okay,
for questions and answers.
we have about 15 minutes if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, yeah.
I can uh yeah, somebody's asking for the Mara acronym too. So but yeah, if you want to go ahead and I will open people can raise their hand and we'll unmute you as you raise your hand.
Now, bear in mind that I'm working off my phone because I'm trying to travel very light. So I can't see everyone. So,
Yeah. And
um,
that's okay. And right now I have you pinned, so
okay.
everybody can just see you. But I will unmute.
Thank you. It's, like the fifth precept organization was where my heart was, and I set it up in 2009. And it has naturally evolved between my teaching, between various causes and conditions, because life is made up of causes and conditions. It's evolved into this raft to freedom framework, and it's very flexible, and I believe it to be very, very helpful as well. So, thank you for your question.
Thank you. And could you go over the acronym for Mara again?
Yeah, so it's M for mindful, A for awareness, R for respond or responds, and A for appropriately. So, you know, mindful awareness responds appropriately. So when I notice um, things come into my experience that I can respond skillfully or unskillfully to, and mindful awareness responds appropriately. Mindfulness is always ethically imbued. You can't have a mindful sniper, um, or a mindful skier, or a mindful uh, well, I suppose you could have a mindful musician, slightly different. But mindfulness is always, it never arrives alone, it has a retinue. Mindfulness is always ethically imbued. So mindful awareness responds appropriately. And this wisdom, Buddhist wisdom, I always used to think about it as you develop this super IQ and know what to do in every situation. But I'm after I now think that Buddhist wisdom is about knowing what is the appropriate response in any situation. And if you think of mindfulness, one of the major definitions that the Buddha gives of mindfulness is remembering what was said and done long ago. So remembering things you needed to remember, remembering things that are helpful. So, if I walk into a bar, which I don't walk into a bar, but if I'm in a bar for some strange reason, a wedding or whatever, I should remember that I don't drink. I don't have to remember that now after 29 years. I don't have to remember that now. But these are the things that come to mind. So, what's the appropriate response in any given situation? So, mindful awareness responds appropriately. And it's interesting that Mara appeared to the Buddha more often after his awakening than before his awakening. And the reason for that is the Buddha just got better, Gotama just got better at recognizing Mara, the more subtle, his more subtle appearances. And he would say, "Oh, Mara, I see you." And Mara would just give up the ghost and fade away. So I hope that helps them. And I think this talk is being recorded. And if Marion and Cheryl wanted, I can send them a PDF of the talk. Or I think YouTube actually provides automatic transcriptions now.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yes, this is being recorded right now. I'm not quite sure how it's all going to turn out. Um, it's, we'll see. And I do have another question from somebody. They were asking if you could share the author for that Forgiveness for Everyone.
Oh yeah, Jeff Oliver. I think he spells his name with a J, so Jeff Oliver. If you look up Jeff Oliver, Forgiveness for Everyone, um, PDF, and there's at least one Buddhist site that keeps the PDF version, and it's a very good book. He looks at forgiveness a little bit different to how I present forgiveness, but I just love that phrase. That's who I was then. It's not who I am now, and it's not who I will be in the future.
Thank you. Let's see, does anybody else have any questions? You can always send that to me. Or if anybody does, you can either send me a question or let's see.
Or
Okay,
raise your hand.
I do have a question. Could he repeat the self-compassion words said with the hands on our heart?
The mudita blessing.
Or,
This for centuries, the monastics in Sri Lanka, every morning they would get up and put on their robes and walk bare feet through their villages and towns, stand on the corner. And over the centuries, they built up a whole catalogue of blessings that they would offer when people put food in their bowls. And one of those blessings, translated by another one of my teachers, John Peacock, the English Pali scholar, is the monk would say, "How wonderful you are in your being. I delight that you are here. I take joy in your good fortune. May your happiness continue and increase," which is lovely. And then, as I said, Christina Feldman, a colleague of John Peacock's, says it's even more powerful if you turn it on yourself. And as I say, you put your hand on your heart and you say it every morning as you get out of bed. How wonderful I am in my being. I delight that I am here. I take joy in my good fortune. May my happiness continue and increase.
thank you for that. I do have another question. Somebody was asking who the author or the name of the book Falling Apart.
Oh, I didn't actually mention a book called Falling Apart, but there is a book called Falling Apart. Pema Chodron. I think Everything Falls Apart. I can't remember yet. But yeah, she has a very good book on impermanence and things falling apart. Pema Chodron.
Okay, thank you. And then, okay, somebody is also mentioning that Forgiveness for Everyone, there's a meditation course with Jeff Oliver also. Just somebody posted that. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Also, if you look online, I think I've got a 6-week or 6-session forgiveness course online YouTube that anyone can look at, and there's an accompanying forgiveness workbook that goes with that as well. If people find that helpful.
Yes, and we did put your website in the chat. So hopefully people, I put all three of them in there. So hopefully they'll find you, and thank you very much. Uh, I think she meant when things fall apart. Yeah, so Pima Chodron.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Um, Anybody else? If not, we can take an early break. Oh, wait, I have a question here, I think. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's everything for now. All right. Well, Vince, I want to thank you very much. Very, very much, much love to you and appreciate your time. And I hope you enjoy the cables when you go get a chance to go out and visit. That sounds wonderful.
Okay, so I mean, been my pleasure. I'm sorry that I couldn't see everyone on the Zoom screen, but I hope I've given you a little bit of a different perspective, different lines of inquiry, and maybe inspired you to look at Google Maps and choose, adventure before dementia. So I'm gonna leave you to the rest of your day, and and again, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vince. I
Thank you.
appreciate you being here.
Much meta to you. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.